Hey guys, Javier here with the real Javier Novoa. And in this video, I just wanted to go deeply into something that I touched upon in our last video when I was talking about my journey at the age of 40 up until this time. And it went a lot into my journey into these principles and in self-help. And probably the greatest piece of wisdom that I can extract from that video, and which I think is probably the greatest lesson that I've learned in my life and that I can actually laser focus upon from here on out in this channel, is The Secret of Napoleon Hill. You see, the first book that I read in this vein of interiorism in self-help was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It was actually given to me by a friend who was actually 40 at the time. I was probably about 16, 17, and this friend of mine, who was a colleague, a coworker, was very much into this self-help genre, very much into universalism and what we would call in this channel interiorism, gave me this book, Think and Grow Rich. And I did learn a lot of lessons from it. But the greatest mystery of that book is touched upon in the beginning. And I actually want you to read you the quote from the book itself by Napoleon Hill. Many of you have probably read this and not figured it out. In fact, a quick Google search reveals that a lot of people say, well, I can't find the secret. A lot of people say, I don't think there is a secret. I believe that there is a secret, and it is very well identifiable, because Napoleon Hill said that Andrew Carnegie taught him this secret. And of course, Andrew Carnegie, as many of you know, was a member of the secret societies, if not the Masons, the Rosicrucians, and others. And they teach this secret knowledge. This knowledge is as old as the Egyptians. This knowledge is as old as Solomon. And this piece of knowledge, this piece of wisdom that Napoleon Hill talks about here, I believe is the key to living free. And this channel is all about living free. And you'll soon discover why. So Napoleon Hill says in the introduction to Think and Grow Rich, a peculiar thing about this secret is that those who once acquire it and use it find themselves literally swept to success with what seems to be little effort. And they never again submit to failure. If you doubt this, study the names of those who have used it wherever they have been mentioned, check their records for yourself, and be convinced. So it's a secret that can be found, as he says here, in the autobiographies of all of the great men of history. Whether you look at the great military men like Napoleon, like Alexander, like Julius Caesar, whether you look at the great men of business, Armand Hammer and others, Boris Berezovsky, he says there's no such thing as something for nothing. Napoleon Hill says this. The secret to which I refer cannot be had without a price. And you'll soon see what the price is. In fact, I believe that this is a riddle. It is a play on words because, guys, this is the only thing that makes sense. The price of having this piece of knowledge, of getting it, is the proposition itself, is the piece of knowledge itself. I will stand by this. And again, you cannot have this without paying the price, although the price is far less than its value. It cannot be had at any price by those who are intentionally searching for it. Why? Because the answer is not the answer. If the answer were the answer, then you could find it by searching for it. Somebody could. But he is saying that anyone who's intentionally searching for it will not find it. Why? Because the answer is not an answer. Stay with me, and I'll explain it. It cannot be given away, because if I give it to you and you do not internalize it and practice it, and this is the main message, you must practice it. Then if you do not internalize it and practice it, shall do you no good. It cannot be given away, cannot be purchased for money, for the reason that it comes in two parts. One part is already in possession of those who are ready for it. So, it cannot be given, even if I tell it to you, it cannot be given, you have to experience it. You cannot find it by searching for it, which means that you cannot find it by thinking it's going to be an answer in itself. And it comes in two parts. One part is already in possession of those who are ready for it. And guys, I have hundreds of videos, about 600 videos on interiorism. You can watch the channel. It is indeed a beautiful edifice. It is a philosophy that is built upon the philosophies of many of those who have come before. And it is my best rendering of a model, if you will, a description of the way the universe is. But no description is true by definition. For if I describe something, if I put it into words, it is already a map. And as we know from Korzybski and Krishnamurti and all of the great philosophers, knowers, the map is never the territory. If I have a map of Texas, that is not Texas. It depends on how you use it. Are you going to use it to what end? So there has to be the end first. But no matter how beautifully I describe this philosophy, it's not true. Nothing I say is true. I'm not an authority. There is no authority. You are the only authority. So I'm going to tell you the secret of Napoleon Hill. And I'm going to tell you how you can actually acquire it and make it your own. And it's this, guys, simply this. And I did mention it in my last video. If you want to go back, I'll put the link in the description. I basically give advice to people under 40. I talk about my 40 years on this earth and what I've learned. I believe that the secret of Napoleon Hill and all of the great works of interiorism is frequent experimentation. Contemplate it. Napoleon Hill says, it cannot be had without a price. So you cannot have this knowledge unless you actually do it. The price is going out, and what is the price really, guys? The price is trust. The price is belief. The price is knowing that it's a game, guys. Because when you know it's a game and you know it's a simulation, then you will be willing to experiment. But if you think all of this is serious, and if you think facts are final, as Neville Goddard says, and if you think this world is all there is, then you will not experiment. You'll experiment in some things. Indeed, life is a constant experiment. We don't oftentimes make it consciously, and that's why this is the secret, because it's something that we all do. But we don't all do it consciously. So, the secret is conscious, frequent experimentation. You go out and you run experiments. That's the price. You have to actually go and run experiments, but you have to do it from the basis of this reality is mutable. This reality is not all there is. Therefore, when I experiment, I can play, and then I can have feedback, and then I can modulate and modify my behavior according to that feedback. But nothing's really serious, because if it's really serious and it's really important, you will not experiment. And then life will pass you by. The most successful people on earth, Andrew Carnegie, they were consciously running experiments because they knew reality was completely and totally moldable as potter's clay, as Neville Goddard said. You have to know that. But knowing it is not enough. There is a price. And the price is you have to go out, as Joe Dispenza talks about, and you have to venture out into the unknown. You have to get comfortable in the unknown. What is the common characteristic of every billionaire? Of every great person you know? Look at Elon. Look at Jeff Bezos. My God, look at Sam Altman. They're experimenting on the cutting edge of what it means to know, of what it means to be intelligent. While we may all have our differing philosophies on how far AI will go, how far AI can go, they're all experimenting on the frontier. Most of us are afraid to even think about it. Most of us are afraid to even talk about it. Most of us are afraid to rock the boat at our jobs. But these men have made their entire lives as an experiment. And you go into wealth, and you even go into the scriptures. All of the scriptures, the Quran says that wealth is not simply meant to be congealed, to be hoarded. It must be circulated. And that is the meaning of currency. It must be circulated, which means what? If you keep your wealth in one place and hoard it, there's death because there's no movement. But if you circulate it, then it increases. And circulation is experimentation. Why? I have to find out how to do it. I have to find out what I should invest in. I can fail. I've got to trust people with my money, and sometimes that trust will be misplaced. That money will be gone in some cases. But if you see the people that actually step into the unknown repeatedly and experiment repeatedly, it always ends up well for them. And again, Joe Dispenza talks about a lot. And I know this from my own experience. Every time I've stepped into the unknown, I have not been disappointed. It is only the person that steps into the unknown, is hurt, and then stops and never again experiments, who of course stays in his or her position. But if you keep experimenting, not caring the results, it always ends up well, guys. That is a law. I remember they were interviewing Elon Musk. I believe it was Lex Friedman. And he said that when he entered the auto industry, he knew that he had about a 12 to 14% chance of success. He invested all of his wealth into Tesla. He invested his life into Tesla. He had a very small shot of success, but he went for it anyway. He did it anyway. Why? Because it was his passion and because he wanted to experiment. And successful people become addicted to experimentation. Successful people do not stand still. Successful people go out and keep running experiments. And I'm very excited about this topic, guys. This is the secret of Napoleon Hill. Now he says, it comes in two parts. One part is already in possession of those who are ready for it, which means if you're not ready for this, you can study interiorism for the 20 years. You can study business books for years, which is what I did in my 20s. You can study philosophy for years. It won't matter because you are not ready to go and put that experimentation into practice. So the first part is that you are already experimenting. Indeed, in order to watch these videos, in order to even seek this knowledge, you have to be experimenting because you are by default going towards something that you've not been taught before. You're going towards something that's not in the mainstream. You are experimenting. That is the secret, guys. And that's what we're constantly talking about in this channel. All of this philosophy and all of these interviews that I do with successful people, all of these principles of interiorism are to get you to step into the unknown. I don't know anything about reality. You don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. We are all in almost complete ignorance. We only know what our senses report to us. And science is very clear. The senses distort whatever there is objective. And if you look into the idealists like Berkeley and others, the great idealist philosophers, Schiller, you will know that there is no substratum of reality. It is all subjective. So we know nothing. So we might as well assume that it is all a simulation, and we might as well operate according to that and experiment with that. And the only thing that matters, guys, is your happiness, is how it feels to you. So go and experiment for 1 week, thinking that this world is law, that it is immutable, that facts are facts. So you've probably been doing that all your life. And see how it feels. Probably feels pretty boring, pretty crummy. And then the next week, go and experiment and say, you know what, I'm just going to pretend that I am God, I am spirit having a human experience, and that all of matter and all of reality responds to my command, and live life as if. And if, again, something happens to you on the outer that seems to contradict that, revise it and say, no, this happened, and see how that feels. Then you will have the confidence to go and run experiments, more experiments. How can I become financially independent? What if I did this differently? That is where all the juice is. And that is where interiorism comes into its own. The greatest secret of Napoleon Hill, and I dare say of Neville Goddard, and of all of the great philosophers that we talk about on this channel, including the humble speaker, is frequent experimentation. And I don't think you will hear this interpretation of Napoleon Hill anywhere else. So go out and experiment. We're going to keep making videos along this vein. It is very fun and interesting to me to talk about this topic. I am running some very big experiments. That's why I've been very busy. Haven't been on the channel much, but I will try to drop in more frequently. If you want to work with me, I will put my email in the description. And please do subscribe to the channel, like the videos if you enjoy this content. Much love and appreciation. I'll see you soon.